as you can see, we are trying to be socially responsible, and we are following the science and the CDC, and we're keeping a distance. Although I would ask the Senate Judiciary Proceedings Committee to not keep a distance from doing what's right, to not keep a distance from justice. What we know, what the science tells us, is that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted in this country. That is about 20%. We have a national epidemic on our hands. This is the other epidemic that we're not dealing with. The science is clear. The average survivor doesn't come forward until they're in their 50s. The science is also clear that victims suffer severe depression, they suffer anxiety, post-traumatic stress, they suffer sleep disorders, they suffer with substance abuse, relationship problems, the list goes on, and sadly, many of them end in suicide. So that I would say to the Senate today that they know the facts, they know the science, they know the data, they know the science of traumatology, and as a governing body, they must act to protect children. That's what they must do when they know of a danger, just like this country is responding to the danger of COVID-19. But we have an ongoing danger that's been going on for years. They now have the knowledge, they have an obligation and a duty to act. They need to be on the right side of history. In 2019, 23 states passed SOL reform legislation. This year alone, 28 states have introduced SOL legislation. 14 of those states have revival or retroactive language. Last year, 9 states passed revival or retroactive language. It is a national trend. Maryland can follow the trend of great leaders and justice, or they can remain in the dark ages. And we ask them to do the right thing, to do what all other states are doing, to protect children, to stand on the side of justice. It is a very simple either-or proposition. You either stand with justice and the safety of children, or you stand shoulder to shoulder with sexual predators and institutions that cover them up. So we ask them, we urge all of them to vote and allow this bill through committee so the full Senate floor can hear it. We already know we have the votes on the Senate floor. Let them vote. Let them represent their constituencies in this state. Let them vote. Let them do the right thing. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys coming out. First of all, we want to let our constituents and the citizens of the state know that although we're going through this tough time, that your legislators still at work. We're still doing what needs to be done and fighting to pass important bills. And as many of you know, this is a very important bill, not just to me, but to thousands and millions of people throughout this country. And it is time that we expose our abusers. It's time that the individuals that have been hidden by these institutions are brought forth and brought into the light. I call it the Hidden Predator Act for a reason, because they're still out there. And because of this statute of limitation, they've not been exposed. We finally have an opportunity to do it. It passed out of the House unanimously. Last year it died in the Senate. I try to have faith, as pragmatic as I think I am, because politicians don't always do the right thing. But I do hope in times like this, when there's an emergency, and we see our country and our state pulling together, that our Senate can pull together as well to do the right thing. This is not about the Catholic Church. They're less than 4% of the victims. This is about all the victims in Maryland, in this country. They need to know that we stand behind them. When it's difficult, that's when we're supposed to step up. That's when leaders are supposed to take charge. I'm looking forward to our Senate leaders to take charge, lead the way, send a message to our victims that we're there for you, and send a message to our abusers that we're coming for you. It is very important that we change Maryland's history. Instead of hiding behind institutions that allow their children to be abused and tucked away, that we step forward and we shine the light of all of our dark and greatest miseries, so that our victims can look up and live another day. I don't want another suicide to go by. I don't want another child to lose a parent because they can't hold it together. In living my life, I know how difficult that is. I tell my personal story up here, not because of self-aggrandizement, but because I want people to know that this touches everyone. This has touched somebody you know, and I would hope that my colleagues, knowing that it has touched one of their colleagues, would stand up and fight not just for me, but for all the victims of child sex abuse. Thank you.
And my name's David Lorenz. I'm Maryland Director for SNAP, which is Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. I'm a survivor. I was abused at the age of 16, and that's a picture of me when I was abused. I'm here to urge the Senate to pass HB974, which was heard on the House and passed on the House unanimously in the last couple of days. The committee on the House heard very moving testimony from victims such as me and other victims. And what they saw, what they see with this bill, is not the adult standing before them, but during the testimony, they start to recognize that these adults were children when they were abused, who had no idea what was going on. We first feel like we've been abused by a trusted adult, and it takes years to start to realize that that was a crime committed against you. And then once you finally realize that a crime's been committed, you go through the guilt and the shame that you feel responsible for what happened. And it takes forever. As Kathryn pointed out, it takes until you're normally about 50 years old. And the more trusted the adult, the more difficult it is to come forward. So this bill does two things. One is it eliminates the statute of limitations for children going forward, and it provides a 2-year look-back window. What does that 2-year look-back window do? That 2-year look-back window allows justice for victims who have been locked out of justice because of archaic and outdated statute of limitations. And when they do that, they also expose predators who are still here in Maryland. We know in other states, when other states have passed look-back windows, predators are exposed. Dozens to hundreds of predators are exposed because the statute of limitations is now open for a short period, 2 years, for victims who've been locked out. And so this will expose predators in the state of Maryland, thereby protecting children. Predators do not stop preying on children simply because they get old. People think once they get into their 50s or 60s, this is not about sex. This is about control and being in a sickness. And they do not stop simply because they get to that age where we think most people are involved in a sexual encounter. They continue into their 70s and their 80s. And we urge the Senate to pass this bill. I know this bill is being opposed by the Maryland Catholic Conference, and is probably the only institution that's opposing this. One of the things that they say is that they're worried about bankruptcy. Well, bankruptcy is a means for them to actually take all of the suits filed against them, put them in bankruptcy court, and hide the fact that, and this allows them to hide the fact that they have promoted these predators and actually allowed them to prey on children. And so they file for bankruptcy. And you think that, and they'll say that, well, we'll go bankrupt and we'll stop doing our good works. I want to point out that just our neighboring state, Delaware, passed window legislation, and in 2011 they filed for bankruptcy. Now here, 9 years later, they're actually building a new cathedral. So it really didn't cause the Diocese of Wilmington to go out of business. And the church will say they're worried about bankruptcy. It's just not, it just doesn't happen that they stop their good works. So people are concerned about that. With all of that, I urge the Senate to think about what the House saw in those testimonies. They saw children in front of them. They saw pictures of children, 16 years old, 10 years old, 8 years old, who were abused and hurt while they were children, and how hard that is for a child to come forward. And I urge the Senate to think about that and pass this legislation. Thank you.
Any questions, guys?
Question?
Because I will say that the hearing is this morning. I didn't know about it. I wasn't notified. It is my bill. So I do understand we're under some, it's more of a fugue state up here, and there's some torrid circumstances. So I pray that that is not a bad sign. I do know that I found out through hearsay that they were having a hearing on my bill. And although it's usually sponsor only, because I really couldn't find a sponsor to cross-file in the Senate, yeah, we're having it this morning kind of in the dark. They're not going to hear from me. They're not going to hear from any witnesses. They're not going to hear from any victims. They're basically going to argue, I hope at least, on the substance of the bill. But I really do pray that this is not some surreptitious way of sneaking it by and killing it with nobody watching, because I know that this country right now is kind of frozen in place because of the virus. But I'm hoping that this is not something to just get rid of this bill and sweep it under the rug again, which is why we came out here today, to make sure that everybody knows and that our citizens know that we're doing our work we're supposed to be. We're not just up here hanging out and playing around, and until we are dismissed, we're going to keep on fighting. And I pray that there are people in the Senate and in JPR that are actually fighting for these victims as I have.
Delegate, yeah, as a legislator, you would be entitled to attend the meeting. Or do you plan on going and sitting in the gallery anyway?
With my temperament, I don't know if that's a good idea, because the dismissive attitude that some of these, this is personally, and the dismissive attitude that some of these individuals have taken, some of these elected officials and senators have taken, it doesn't do me right. I don't want to be the person I know I can be, which is not what an elected official is supposed to be. So going in there by myself probably would not be the smartest thing to do. They're being recorded. I hope that they're being held accountable, because I don't feel that my personality is structured for issues like that. I was a combat soldier. I know one way to address a problem, and that's head on. That might not be the perfect solution for today.
I hear they're streaming, at least yesterday, JPR streamed the voting session,
That would be
which is unusual.
Great, shocking, but great if they do. I would applaud Senator Smith if that is what they indeed do today, because regardless of the outcome of the vote, it needs to be public. Citizens need to know who they're voting for and where their elected officials really stand on protecting our children.
Also,
Good, guys?
If I could just point out that we are being socially responsible, as Kathryn said. The only reason we're exempt from that is because we're married. So just want to point that out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
very much.
We'll all be first to be in there. So
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
For your brutality.
yes.
Follow-up question? I'll try not to get too quick.
Sure.
We had mentioned how this is. How long has that been going on? And what do you think it's caused?
The first revival legislation happened in 2002 in California. But it
Delegate Wilson, we
really
need to get by.
took an uptick in 2019. Again, we had 43 states introduced legislation, 23 passed, 9 of those had revival retroactive legislation. This year alone, again, we have 28, and we have 14 of those states have revival. So there's an uptick, because I think what's happening is that legislative bodies now have the data. They have the science. They have the science of traumatology. They understand what stress does to the brain, especially the brain of a child. They've got the data. They need to act. And that's what they're doing. Across the country, states are acting because they understand that perpetrators should not be rewarded for the very silence and shame they cause in their victims. That's outrageous in terms of public policy. That's outrageous in terms of law to protect children, to honor notions of justice and fairness. I think they're figuring that out. And I really hope that Maryland does not stay in the dark ages, and that these senators in this committee step up and do the right thing for the children of this state and for the victims of this state. Thank you.
Predators know that they're protected by short statute of limitations. They really do.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if you want to touch this or not, but I could send it to you. It's what you just asked, which is
Yeah, I'll take it.
a whole list of the states that have done the look back on that. Thanks.
You know, elbow.
Any last comments? Good elbows. Thanks, guys.
Be safe, be well.
Be well.
Kathryn, thank you for coming.
Oh, of course.
6 hours is